Go. We are live. Hello to everyone who's joining us live on LinkedIn. Really excited for this conversation. I will set the scene. I'll give us a bit of a rundown on what's going to happen today before we get into things. And then we'll do a quick intro of the people that you can see on the screen as well. So first and foremost, thank you for joining us, guys. We are here to host the great sales debate live on LinkedIn. We are debating activity, quantity versus quality when it comes to prospecting. What wins? Is it quality of outreach? Is it quality of messaging? Or is it quantity? And we're going to be debating that live right here, right now with these three guests that I've got on. A little bit of a change to the lineup. We've had a personal circumstance with a couple of our guests today. So first and foremost, thank you to Mark Akers, who stepped in his colleague's place. Rich Smith, who's unable to join us. My colleague Georgia, suffering from COVID today. Well, not today, just generally. Other days as well, but she's not well. So we're down to 4, but we've got some strong opinions and some really great stuff to come in the conversation. So first and foremost, let's go around our guests and introduce you to everybody. First and foremost, we've got Dale Dupree, the founder and CSO at Sales Rebellion. Dale, give us 20 seconds about you.
20 seconds about me. My name is Dale Dupree. I'm the only creative copier salesman in the entire world. And because of that, I decided one day that it was time for a sales rebellion to get away from the monotony and to start challenging the status quo and getting back to putting sales into people's hands. I currently live in the great state of Tennessee. I know y'all are all like, what the heck? Where'd Florida go? I left. So if you're anywhere in the Knoxville area today, come find me in this coffee shop and let's hang out.
Love it. Love it. Brilliant. Moving around in a circle on my screen, at least. Moving to Benjamin Dennehy, not Benjamin Dennehy, which we established on my podcast. Apparently, everyone calls you the wrong name.
They do.
Who is the UK's most hated sales trainer? I don't hate you, Benjamin, but nonetheless.
I try.
Give us 20 seconds. Go.
All right. So everybody, hi, Benjamin, UK's most hated sales trainer. Why do people hate me? Well, I'd stay for the show and you're going to find out why. I don't pull my punches. I speak truth to salespeople who love to stick their head in the sand and believe that the world is a wonderful place and it's just the nasty, bad prospect that makes their life difficult. It's not. It's all your fault. Look in the mirror, slap yourself around and try and get out of your own way. So that's why people hate me, because I don't take fools.
Love it. Love it. I'm going to take it back. I hate you again. Thank you. And moving around, we've got Mark Akers. He's a sales director at Lego. Mark, 20 seconds on yourself, please. And thank you for standing in as well.
Yeah, thanks very much. So last minute sub, I'll let everyone decide that's a good thing or not. But how can I follow that up? We've got 2 people that I'm really excited to be part of the conversation here today. But as Owen said, sales director in the UK for Lego. Trying to create content on LinkedIn and book author of problem prospecting as well. So that's me, and looking forward to having this conversation today.
Love it. All right, guys, we've done the bit that needs to be done. Let's dive into what's going to happen today. First and foremost, with the crowd that are watching, can you please comment? Let us know where you are in the world. Love to know where you're watching this from. I think we've got to have at least 3 continents covered. We might make 4, don't know. That's the goal for today. So if we can do that, that would be fantastic. The rules of the game. So I am going to be chairing this debate and this discussion. We are going to start with each of you making a bit of a case based on your opinion at the start of the conversation. Then I want you to all have some kind of an open mind to listen to each other throughout. We'll get questions coming in from the audience as well, guys. If you've got questions, put them in the comments. We're quite happy to throw them at the panel if we can. I will always play devil's advocate, rule number 1. So doesn't mean I agree or disagree. That's just my job, right? So don't take it as given that that's my opinion. Number 2, if you want to speak, somebody else is talking, pop your hand up, make it obvious you want to go next so that I know you want to go next and you've got something to say. Number 3, I think I'm on number 3. Keep it professional-ish. Number 4, we're all friends here, kind of, even though we hate each other sometimes, apparently, but that's okay. We're all friends. Number 5, though, don't agree too much. Let's not make this too nice, all right? If we're too nice, this doesn't work and people start walking away from the event. So we'll go friends, but friends that maybe don't like each other sometimes. Number 5, I make all the decisions, as per usual, right? I make the decisions. If somebody's talking over, I'll mute them. All right, get rid of them. That's it, gone. So we need to make sure that at the end of the day, I'm chairing this conversation. I want to get the best conversation and give everybody a a fair, equal opportunity to talk and make their point. Number 6, you will be challenged, expect to be challenged by each other. And if you've got a challenge each other. So quite happy for you as panelists to challenge a point and to ask each other questions as well. So there you go. I'll look at that. Netherlands, London, UK, Denmark, Toronto, South Africa. That's already 3 continents done. Love it.
Woo.
All right, we're off to a good start. So, scene setting. In prospecting, in our sales outreach, what's more important? Quantity of outreach, getting the volume, getting the numbers done, making sure that we have the most amount of conversations, send the most emails possible so that we're moving fast, or quality. Now, let's be fair. We know there's a balance in everything in life. We're just going to be a bit extreme for a minute, though. We've got to pick a camp. All right, we're going to pick a camp at the start of this and just give a bit of context as to why you think what you think. And as a second to that, what your experience has been. So what have you done in your career? Have you done both? Have you only done one of them? And we'll go around in reverse order. So Mark, I'll come to you first, if that's all right.
Yeah. So like you said, there's a balance, right? I think the reality is you can exaggerate a point to make a point for both cases, right? If you do quality and it's one piece of outreach, you're not going to get the results. And if you do thousands of pieces from a quantity point of view, you're going to get results as well. So there's an argument for both. But ultimately, I think it depends where you're at in your career. When I started off and I was crap, I had to do quantity to get the numbers. As I've got older, got more experience, said himself better quality. And so for me, I'm more quality, but it's difficult. It depends who's measuring it. People measure different things. Lazy sales managers measure quantity, but everyone wants the quality.
Love it. You're going to be our most balanced view, I think. Let's see. Benjamin, coming around to you. We'll see.
Well, again, it's a very layered topic. There are layers to this, aren't there? There are layers to this. And it all depends. Again, you are right. It depends where you are in your career. The better you get at stuff, the less you have to do of it. That's just a fact of life, right? And when you finally master prospecting, you probably will never have to do it again because you've got to a point in your career where, business comes to you. So for young people starting out, it depends what's being measured. I don't think you should measure stupid things like talk time. I've worked with companies where they'll measure talk time. Got to be on the phone for 180 minutes. Why? There's 180 minutes of bollocks probably being discussed. I'd rather have 10 minutes of quality over 180 minutes. Are you measuring dials? Is it this dial? You got to dial. You got to do 100 dials. Why? So I believe in measuring what matters, and what matters is conversations with decision makers, not just conversation. It can't be conversations with the wrong sort of person. So it all comes, if you've got a list of data, I want you to talk to at least 5 qualified decision makers every day. 5. That could take 50 dials, could take 5 dials, could take 500 dials. I don't really care how many dials. So if we're talking about volume, it could be volume of dials. But at the end of the day, once you've hit those 5 conversations, you can go do whatever you want. Because if you do that every single day, that's 25 a week, that's 100 a month. If you ain't getting 10 quality appointments with decision makers from that volume, get out, buy a dog, set up a charity, change your pronouns, just do something else. That's my position.
I love that. Set up a charity, do something else. All right, brilliant. Dale, coming around to you. I'm already enjoying this.
Second that. Set up a charity, do something else. So I have an interesting journey. I started in B2B sales in the copier world. And in the copier world, especially when I first had gotten started as a young man several decades ago, I'm old, y'all. Isn't that weird? I was forced essentially into this identity of that the only way to really find a sale was to go out and do enough work. So the leadership that was at the company that I was working for, which was my dad's, so the managers that he had hired, essentially, they were like, yo, dude, get on that phone. You're like, daddy ain't going to save you out here in the bullpen, baby. You just got to dial. So I was started in this mindset of, I have to work extremely hard, right? Is kind of how I put it together in my head. And that, I was taught as a young man as well, too, that work ethic was good. So I had lied to myself basically and just said, this is a good thing. I'm working hard. I'm going to have success. Yes, yes, yes. I drank my own Kool-Aid and the Kool-Aid of the status quo of sales. And a couple years into it, I recognized that I wasn't hitting the kind of numbers that I wanted to. I wasn't having the type of sales existence that I desired as well, too. I think that's a huge piece of the puzzle. Most of us build an ecosystem that's literally a reactive ecosystem that is inevitably going to fail at some point. And because of that, I started to think more proactively. And so I actually took the couple hundred people that I had conversations with and thought, what if I just like broke this down to 10 and tried to have a better conversation with these people? Then in the process of that, I became a quality guy, wrote millions of dollars in revenue every year because of that. And I didn't have to work as hard as all the people that were grinding in the bullpen on a daily basis. Instead, I just worked extremely smart, which doesn't mean that suddenly like you don't work an 8-hour day, right? It just means that your 8-hour day is full of things that are actually driving you to be excited about work. So I think quality goes further than just this idea of how many people we call and talk to. Again, it's about the ecosystem that we're creating and building for ourselves and what we desire out of it. Maybe you're more of a transactional person, right? So that ecosystem, even if it's quality, your ecosystem can't be forcing relationships into your life, because if you don't want that in the first place, now you're just faking it, right, to begin with. So I think there's a balance there around the identity of your attitude, who you are as a human being, and what you'll be inside of the sales world. But with all that said, quality beats quantity.
There
all
it is.
day.
I was waiting for you to say that.
Wondering if we're going to get there. So American, talky. Yeah, cut for the chase.
Love it. Okay, fine. We've set our scene. We've got your opinions out there. Thank you very much. I've just noticed we've got someone from Australia, 4 continents. So we've got South America and Asia missing at the moment. So if you're watching this at all from either of those continents, let us know. Love to have a full global coverage on this. So I want to challenge someone. First challenge. Let's just go in. Dale, you talked about going into quality, and you learned to do that. I put it to you that it would have been very hard to do that without that quantity-based experience at the beginning of your career.
I would tell you that you're insane. What I would challenge in that is that if a salesperson is starting out, it is a bad practice, in my personal opinion. I speak for myself here in the sales rebellion, obviously. It's bad practice to like throw people to the wolves, like put them in some kind of situation where they have to like go into defense mode and like become this person that picks up all the scraps all day. And you're literally just damning that person's existence to begin with. If I am looking at the industry and being more specific to the vertical, and I say something like, well, we're selling to like retail stores, for example, and there are 800,000 of them in nationally inside of the United States, and we have a list of 300,000, and we've got 14 BDRs making dials all day. We need to hit all these places. I have to create a strategy and stepping stones to be able to allow my people to work in a very smart manner from the perspective of, we got to hit all these people at some point, right? And we can't, it's not, if it takes us 30 years, we're never going to have a successful business. So there's a strategy there 100%, but it doesn't mean that we have to start them with just like, hey, pick that phone up and I'm going to turn this auto dialer on and you're going to hit 2,000 people today, whether you like it or not, right? So while I disagree with that sentiment, I also think that it did help me. And I'll tell you why it helped me, because I felt like an idiot after what I had been doing for a couple of years, and then realized what I could have been doing and tapped into myself more than somebody else's mindset and concepts for what they wanted for my life. And that's why it helped me, because I sat back and was like, why am I listening to people that have zero idea what's best for me and how I can be better inside of sales to begin with? And so it caused that rebellious nature in me to come out and to turn a switch and just become what I became. So yeah, sure. Like for some people, it could definitely help them, but why in God's name would you put somebody through that torment?
Mark, I'm going to come to you if that's all right, because I just want to dig into something that you talked about earlier, like early in career, that kind of stuff. And I hear what you're saying, Dale. I think you agreed with me a little bit, disagreed with me a lot there. That's fine. We're okay. We're still friends. But Mark, at the beginning of an SDR's career, SDRs might last, I don't know what the tenure is at the moment, depends on which report you read, but 15 months in role, they're talking about being average. Can an SDR come in and be good at quality outreach from day one? Is the ramp time longer? Have they got to learn more channels? There's a part of me that thinks, geez, we're making it so hard for them to be good at 10 things and be good at that quality piece, so much easier to be better at quantity, surely.
There's so many things to say here, right? So first of all, when I started out as an SDR, I mean, it wasn't called that back then. It was, what was it? Very posh. It was business development executive, right? It was an SDR. All I had to do was pick up the phone, Monday to Friday, 8:30 till 5, pick up the phone. And that was it. And I was measured on quantity and I was measured on the board. I had a green pen. I had a board. If the board was green, everything was good. If the board was empty or had other colors from other people and there was no green there, it didn't look good and it would affect you. So as an SDR, you when you start out, you're measured on the results, right? But it's interesting, like Benjamin said, measuring of conversations. Well, that's really hard for a manager to do when they're time strapped, and most managers don't want to do it. It's so easy. I could pull up a dashboard right now, and I could make a decision on how busy or how good my SDRs have been this week based on volume. If I want to look at the quality, I've got to read emails, I've got to listen to calls, I've got to watch videos. And most sales managers are lazy bastards and they don't want to do it. And it's not because they're bad people, it's because they are squeezed in every way. Some of them are. But so there's so many parts of this. But when you're an SDR, that's what you're measured on. You want to book as many meetings as possible for two reasons. One, you're measured on it; it's your job safety. Two, that's where your commission comes from. And some are well paid now, but still a lot of that is made up from a commission perspective. But back to my point, I only had to be good on the phone. SDRs now have to be good on the phone, have to be good creative writers, they have to be great researchers, they have to be comfortable on camera, they have to be great at leaving voice notes, they have to have so many different attributes, and now building personal brands and stand out in competitive environments, So it's very, very difficult with SDR, and so many of them want to be promoted so quickly as well. And that comes back to what was also being said by Dow about work ethic. I've always been taught to work hard, and I've had in my life is loads of shit jobs, and like be that when I was 13, I was told you're getting a paper round, and I had 50 papers a day. Then I worked in a factory where I literally put bacon in packs, those packs into boxes from 3 a.m. till midday. Then I worked in a cafe. Then I worked at a theme park. So for me, like I've always done hard work in between studies, and now people are saying like there's so much noise that you can't talk about hard work, and it shouldn't be hard work, and I find that really frustrating with the generations going through. And I feel like I sit in the middle. Parents, super stiff upper lip, you've got to work bloody hard to get anywhere in life. Me, that's got that sort of sympathize with the next generation. The generation before, it's like, it's not about winning at school. We don't have first place. It's about taking part, and it's about everyone having fun and enjoying themselves, So there's so much to say to that. I feel like I've probably had more cans than answers, but there is lots.
Benjamin's going to want to say something. I'm almost certain.
A fish rots from the head down. That was the opening sentence in my resignation letter in 2006 when I decided to go alone. And I worked in one of these lead generation companies, and the whole ethos was just get meetings on the board. It didn't matter, just meetings on the board, meetings on the board, meetings on the board, meetings on the board. And it was an entire con because the meetings were bollocks. If the person had a pulse, they were qualified, right? And all you would do then is justify to the client, well, you obviously aren't very good at meetings if you're not getting anything. We got you in front of 10 people last month and you're still not selling. That's your fault. It was a con. So when I set up my own business, the key is I knew who I wanted to get in front of, and so I focused my energies on getting in front of them. Took a lot of dialing. I was very creative and inventive. I would send really cool emails. I used to write some in ye olde English when I was writing to older established firms, right? I would make up surveys that I'd done of interviewing people about their product and saying, we would like to help you. So I used to do lots of creative. They did work, but it was a lot of effort. And one thing that I did find was picking up the phone and making the dials was more effective. Yes, you can do great personalization. Don't get me wrong. But it's very different when you're an individual like me, working kind of for themselves, going about doing that. Very different when you're an SDR, you're on a sales floor, 30 of you, and you've got to hit numbers. That is a sales culture that is crap to start with. And I think what happens is a lot of people get bought into really crappy sales cultures, and that's what they think selling is. That it's a sort of boiler room, get the meetings, doesn't matter if they're good or not. You expect a level of churn, expect no-shows, expect dropouts and all of that, and it's almost accepted because it doesn't matter. That's the problem when you just focus purely on volume, not over quality. And eventually it's a short-term business model because clients leave, clients quit. But I do believe in chucking salespeople in the deep end for one reason. Selling is a pressurized job, and how you cope and handle pressure is really important. Not everyone's fit to be in the army for a good reason. Yeah, you're not going to cope with the pressures of that position. Not everyone's suited to sales, and we know most people are only in sales because they needed a job. They're not there out of a lifetime goal, right? So we need to weed out the people that can't survive. It's a bit unfair, a bit of law of the jungle, but people that can't survive need to get out, not just for the business's sake, but for their own sanity. There's a lot easier ways to make money than coming in and doing this. So yes, volume is bad because it creates a culture of creating crappy appointments. Over-personalization can only be done by a select few who have the opportunity to do that. So again, there's always that balance. But as young people getting into it, I think you need to hit the ground running. I think you need to make the calls. You need to get comfortable talking to people. Can't text people. Can't hide behind email. Communication is a two-way street. Yeah? And that is going to be a lost art. Yeah? A lost art. And if you can't do that, you're going to be no good in the future. Trust me, AI is going to take over cold calling. It does not need a human being to do cold calling. Yeah? So you need to get good at communicating. And the best way is on the phone.
Anyone got anything they want to add? Or am I diving in with another question?
No, I'm just going to back this up, right? One of the frustrations when it comes to SDRs making the transition to AEs is, a high percentage of them fail because they've spent their time as SDR hiding behind emails. And they're not having conversations. So actually, I agree, right? You've got to learn by chucking yourself in. Obviously, you don't want to practice on all your prospects. Like, you should have a culture where you're going to practice, you're going to learn. There's coaching. That just doesn't exist. Great sales reps get promoted into managers. Doesn't mean they're good managers. Doesn't mean they're good coaches. Doesn't mean they're able to help those SDRs be successful. They've just been a very good sales rep and been promoted to keep them in the business. So anyway, lots of SDRs aren't having conversations. These sequencing tools are great, and there's lots of them, but it's creating a generation that don't speak on the phone. They hide behind text messages and all the other platforms, and they come in AE and they've got to start having conversations, discovery calls and demos and negotiate, and they really struggle with it. And I think you can really cut your teeth on cold calls, having conversations. One of the first bits of advice I was ever given when I moved from marketing to sales was, if you can pick up the phone, have a conversation with a complete stranger, you can make anything happen for yourself. And I've had that experience where I can just make anything happen for myself because I can pick up the phone and have a conversation with a stranger rather than hide behind emails.
Dale, you've been remarkably quiet. It's got to be your turn.
Yeah, exactly. It is my turn. I think what Mark's talking about there is learned aptitude, right? Like, some of us have the natural ability to do something like sales, which also goes back to Benjamin's point of that you have to weed out whether or not this is something that you should be doing to begin in the first place. I just think there's better ways. Let's get into that real quick, and then y'all can fight me. With what Mark's saying, I think what's cool about what he's saying is that learned aptitude concept. People don't talk about this enough, that like, how do we create a natural ability in you to be able to have these conversations, to be bold and daring enough to pick up the phone, to talk to a strange person, to say things that might be a little uncomfortable, to break away from the script, to stop being a robot inside of sales to begin with. But we don't have that conversation to begin with. Instead, we say, here's the script, here's the people you're dialing, get on the phone and go for it, right? And sure, and it's to Mark's point too, like, there's no coaching in that. So that's why it's hard from my perspective to even decide whether or not the person we just put into the proverbial jungle, if they're actually good enough, because we just forced them into something that's not even naturally what sales should be to begin with. So we've created this like confusing state and then told somebody like, oh, you can't keep up, then get out, right? Like, well, what you created is bullshit to begin with, right? So we have to be careful about that side of it. right? But I do agree that there are natural salespeople and then there are not. And either you can get that learned aptitude by going through the experiences of doing the dials or making the calls. But there's better ways. Like, for example, I had an SDR team in Australia that I was working with, and there was one individual that said, I want to learn the way that you're teaching, essentially, right? He came to me privately, like, I want to do the things that you're talking about beyond just being on the phone. I want to like interact with people. This kid literally got on the street. He got on the street. He used a little tool we called the crumpled letter. He dropped 20 of them off to CTOs for billion-dollar organizations. Right? He walked, this kid was 21 years old. He walked into these places. He said he was shaking the whole time and like handing these letters off. He said it was one of the craziest experiences that he's ever personally had from that perspective of doing something that's uncomfortable that he believed in, though, at the same time, because it's that belief piece that if we could get people bought in from the perspective of what they believe they can do, then the sky is the limit. Well, he made those 20 calls. He set 12 appointments. His boss didn't even believe him. Right, when it came back down to it, right? And see, that's the problem. There's such a disconnect. I think we all agree on that. From the leadership to the salesperson, right, around the activity itself, what they can and can't accomplish. And really that's where the disconnect, in my opinion, is. And that's why we have to be very careful about this idea behind, like, let's just throw them into the woods and give them, you know, a spear and see if they can catch a fish and cook it and eat it and bring it home. And if I like it. Also, because I think a lot of that is preference as well, too. And we shouldn't be forcing preference on people.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think when you think there's different types of what we would call a cold call, right? You've just talked about there, you're going into physically, presently into somewhere. That might get called a cold call in one place. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, you've got the really cold, let's call it frigid cold call, where it's like, you know nothing about them. It's intensely cold. There's nothing there. You literally got a list, a company, a number, maybe not even a name. We get clients give us it. Oh, we want to target these companies. Great. Thanks very much. Let's just phone the landline and see what happens. It just doesn't work. Nobody wants to do that. Absolutely nobody. No human being goes, oh, I'm like desperate. Came out of career desperate to do that as a job. Equally, there's a tipping point, isn't there? Well, I think there's a tipping point, and certainly I'm going to challenge the notion if you guys disagree with me, where actually people start to, and we've kind of heard hints of it, Mark, you talk, hide behind quality. They hide behind it. So doing quality and doing it well, yeah, fine, absolutely. Doing quality can mean, to several people in today's day and world, not really doing that much. It can mean I'm doing all of this creative stuff, but it isn't turning into revenue. It isn't turning into numbers. And Del, I'm going to come to you on this, because I think there will be lots of people watching this who think they're doing quality, who think they're doing the right thing, but actually they would be better salespeople if they did just pick up the phone and talk to people and have conversations. Or if they're not immediately, they would learn to be by having those conversations.
You're speaking my sales love language, as we say. I like the identity of just being blunt. I think that raw honesty is actually personalization inside of an interaction with somebody. And so we do all this, we like learn all these things about a prospect. And this is what people think quality is, right? And to your point, we learn all this. We're like, oh, they went to university here and they've got 3 kids, right? Well, those people don't really give a shit if you know that stuff in the first place. And usually the way that people deliver it, right? Like, hey, a great vacation with your kids, it looked like skiing up the slopes. Like, I'm reading that going like, okay, stalker, that's strange. What else do you know about me that I don't want you to know about? And sure, it's my fault for putting those stupid pictures on Facebook and making them public in the first place, but that's not the point, because it's a ploy. Right after this whole personalization piece of this quality concept that people think, right below it, it goes, by the way, can I get 15 minutes on your calendar to talk to you about X, Y, and Z? Like, just get out of here with that garbage, right? If I were to call somebody, and let's just say like I am an SDR and I'm listening to this and I'm going, well, what the heck do I do, Dale? Do I do research on people? If I'm an SDR and I'm just getting started in my role, I'm going to pick up the phone. The first person that picks up and I'm going to say, hey, Owen, listen, can I be blunt? I have no idea who you are. I saw your company on the internet. That's about it, which doesn't really give me much information. We both know that. But my company sells a product and service that benefits people in your position. And they gave me your name and told me to call you. I'm just doing my job right now. And I'm asking, you know, as someone that's brand new to this industry as well, can I have a few minutes of your time to discuss some of the things that I know that we can help with and see whether or not we're a fit? And like that simple concept right there will literally turn your entire existence at the forefront of your career into something much greater than it ever could be. And I know it sounds stupid to an extent, but try it. Like, seriously, try it. I have done it for years. with new reps. Like, hey, just tell them, stop acting like you know this person. And tell them, like, hey, I know this is probably the 4,000th cold call you've gotten this week. And unfortunately, I don't have any prizes for you. Congratulations on getting so many. But hey, I wanted to call and discuss this with you if the time is correct. And if it's not, don't worry. I'll be the 4,000th next week if that suits you better. And really, if we could just be more blunt with people and we can be more raw with people, and then that is what creates the aptitude that Mark is talking about, that learned aptitude. Because over time, once I understand a vertical, once I understand a problem that's consistent inside of that vertical, I can speak to those things. I can have a more decent conversation with you. I can break the typical patterns. I can become more creative in the way that I'm approaching things. And because of that, the person listening changes their mind altogether from the perspective of what a sales call should be and what's happening right now.
So I was going to say, yeah, that's very good, Dale. And I agree. I want to say this, and SDRs watching this won't know this. You do not need to do a single lick of research to phone someone, because you create, for some reason, you've created a product or service that fixes problems. The database you are given should be a list of companies that you figure at some point will have the problems we fix. And all I need to do is phone up and ask them in a roundabout way, do you have any of these problems or recognize any of these things? If they say no, you move on to the next one. It doesn't mean they're off the list forever. It means at this moment in time in that business cycle, they don't recognize the problems we fix. Nobody has to research me to phone me a new phone contract. They know I got a phone, they use one. All I got to phone up and say, does your signal keep cutting out whenever you leave Bournemouth? Actually, it does. Would you like that to stop? All right, I'm listening. Keep talking. Does your signal cut out when you leave Bournemouth? No, it's bloody good. Fine, I'll phone someone else. It's not that hard. You don't need to know where my pet loves are. You don't need to know I enjoy walks along the beach. You don't need to know my wife, my children, my school. You don't need to know any of that. Stop researching it as a way of procrastinating and avoiding the thing you fear, which is phoning up someone. And you're going to get the odd knob that will say, what do you know about my company? Just hang up on them. You know, you're allowed to hang up on prospects too. Yeah? It's not a one-way street.
Love it.
Yeah?
Love it.
It's so true.
We're getting the animated characters coming out, boys. Well done. Go on, Mark.
But for real, somebody should seriously do this. It's listening. What Benjamin is saying. Be on the phone, and when someone's giving you that, say, "Hey, listen, it sounds like I got you at the wrong time. I'm going to hang up now. I'll try you again at a later date." Yeah. And literally get off the phone. Like it frees you. To be quite frank, it actually empowers you a little bit. And the person on the other line has a literal instance of fear, right? Where they're like, "What did I just miss? What, this guy just hung up on me?" I mean, it's a great moment.
Sales folk, you're not paid enough to put up with the crap that prospects put you through. So don't put up with it. There are so many people to phone. Just hang up. And if they phone your boss and complain, he'll just say, "Were you a knob?" Well, then it's fine. Yeah.
I'm loving it. We're getting somewhere with this. He is on the mark. I've got a question, but I get the feeling you need to say something.
So much again, right? So first of all, it's the perfect analogy we talk about there. Like, you call people up and they're knobs. It's a bit like, though, if you go up to dogs in the park, some will bark at you, others will not. I always say to when I'm coaching sales reps that are fresh man cold calls, it's like, you know, when you're driving the car and someone cuts you up, you've got no problem telling that person what you think of them because you're in a car, you feel safe, they can't get me. It's the same being on a cold call. They can't do anything. Like, it's the other end of anywhere in the world. Like, they're just on the phone. You're in a safe place. You don't have to put up with that crap. But here's the problem. Again, it starts with the company, the salesman. When someone comes into a new sales role, and perhaps it's their first role being an SDR, here's what happens. They get their wonderful little onboarding. They get to meet the manager, maybe go out for lunch on the first day. They're then shipped off to marketing. Go and spend some time with marketing. Marketing fill their head with marketing jargon. Then go and spend time with product. Product fill their head with product jargon. They're then told, get on the phones. And what they start doing is talking like someone from product or someone from marketing. They kind of lose their personality. They you know, when you meet loads of salespeople, they're the first to get around in the pub. They're a good laugh. They're outgoing. They get on the phone. Their personality disappears because what they haven't been told is to have a conversation. These are the problems that we solve. They're really worried because they're calling people that are doing jobs that they've never done before. So, you know, when I think back to when I started, I was calling HR managers. I was calling people who did online assessments. I was calling L&D managers. I've cold called hotel managers. jobs I can never understand and therefore relate to. And I didn't know how to have a conversation with that person. I didn't know why they were going to work. I didn't know what challenges they were having. I didn't know what language they spoke. I didn't know what they moaned about when they got at home. So I relied on the product. I relied on marketing. I relied on that creepy research as to what school they went to, what they did last night, in a way to relate to them. Where actually, when I got older and I realized I need to speak their language, like Benjamin said, you don't have to do any research. You need to know their name and job title, and that's about it. You call them up and say, listen, I know I've called you up out of the blue. We help people just like you solve these problems. Do you have them? If they do, great. They're going to want to have a conversation. If they don't, doesn't mean they're not a fit forever. Just means they're not a fit today, and let's move on. So yeah, lots to agree there.
Loving the comments on the right hand side. Check them out if you haven't already, guys. I think people are enjoying this conversation. So look, I want to just pose something and get your take on this. So this is where I think where I sit really like balanced, and I move between this quality and quantity mindset all the time. And I'm not kind of sitting on one side going, it's definitely quality. Because whilst I don't think being good at something, as in the quality of the work that we do is the problem, I think the perception of it is. There are so many people out there that are being taught that you need to do 20 minutes of research, personalized emails, write me a Spotify list with my name in it, send me a meme of you looking like a skeleton because I haven't come back to you. All of this kind of, nonsense stuff that is so cheesy and horrible and makes me cringe and think, geez, are you literally looking at me through my bedroom window, wondering what I'm doing to personalize your email? And it just makes me feel awkward. And the point is that people's perception is that that is how you do quality, but it's not. Quality is about how you engage with somebody. It's about how do you invoke an emotional reaction? How do you get them to connect with you? How do you get them to respond to you in a different way to the way that they might respond to every other person that's trying to sell them something? Because that's how you go, right, I've got a conversation now. I've got a normal conversation with a decision maker who's behaving like a person to me and not like a buyer that doesn't want me on the end. And I think the problem I have with quality and putting quality into a sales operation and saying, this is our approach, this is our strategy, is that most people can't do it. They cannot do it well. And the thing is, then you end up with, it's 80-20, right? 20% of your operation is steaming ahead. They're miles ahead because they're very good at it. The 80%, they're just never going to be able to do it. And the coaching they're getting, the guidance they're getting is so off the mark. Well, it's impossible.
Because one of the challenges you have with it, and a lot of people don't understand this, is communication. It's never what's intended. It's how it's received. So if you spend your whole time creating these wonderful things that you're sending and think, this is good, this is going to, and they receive it in the wrong way, or they're in the wrong frame of mind, all of that work's been for nothing. So you've got to focus on getting the message right. And you are right. All this personalization, salespeople are the only people that had something happen once and then they hold on to it for dear life, right? And that suddenly becomes the standard bearer. I sent an email once to a CEO with a picture of a duck. And as a result of that, we landed a £50,000 deal. Now I send ducks to everyone. Never sold anything ever again, right? Yes, there's always going to be a one-off amazing something just happens. But that is not, imagine your surgeon acting the same way. Every now and then my patients don't die. I don't know why, just hold on to that one moment for dear life. No, a professional does the same thing over and over again really well. They keep it pretty simple. They master the basics. Selling is the art of communication. Yeah. And if you can't communicate with people effectively, if you don't know how to move them from intellect to emotion, if you don't know how to get them to engage with you, you're going to suck for most of your life at doing this. Yeah. Get off the internet, pick up a phone and talk to people. Yeah. They're not as scary as you've been told to believe. All this social selling nonsense. Sorry, Dan Disney. All this social selling nonsense. It is just a way to avoid your biggest fear. And that is feeling uncomfortable because you don't care about the prospect. You don't care you're interrupting. You don't care. What you care about is you'll feel uncomfortable. And if I feel uncomfortable, I don't want to do it. Well, find another job. That's what I say.
Brilliant. I like the point on perception, right? Because there's a lot of posts on LinkedIn right now that start with this statement of, yesterday, I sent 2 emails to 2 different people with the same thing in them. One responded with, and it's like, never talk to me again. And it's like the next one responded with, let's set a meeting. And I think Benjamin just made the best point. Like every time I see that post, I just laugh and I'm like, but what are you teaching people right now? Because what you're saying in these posts is you're just saying, keep going, keep doing your thing. It's like, well, no, like you need to measure the art instead of what it is that's happening from a communication standpoint. There is a literal art form like Benjamin just talked about, which we believe very scientifically can be broken out. Right. Art is abstract, right? But there's still a way to be able to take that abstractness. That's my American side of me coming out, making up words. I think that is a word though. So anyway, so taking something that is very much like it's hard to it's something that's hard to grasp and hold on to, right? Only 20% of people get it, right? Like Benjamin was saying, the other 80% fail, right? Because they just can't wrap their head around it. Well, that's because of perception. And then that's what we build. And so when we say something like, here, send this meme to everybody, it's not going to work for everybody, period. And if you're not in the mindset of following the person that you're trying to communicate and meeting them where they are, you'll fail no matter what. And you have to be okay with that if you're going to do stuff like we're discussing here. But this is what creativity is, y'all, or quality is creativity. And creativity is experiences. If I can give somebody a different experience than what they're used to having with a salesperson, 99% of the work is done at that point from the perspective of opening the door to communication. Now it's about the quality of communication that I have. Am I listening actively? Am I riddled with an agenda? Am I trying to create a perspective for that person in not in line with like how I want them to feel, but how I'm literally listening to them and applying their perspective and perception to the conversation to keep it going, right? Instead of trying to side rail it or handle an objection, or all these lines and moves and tricks. And not a big fan of them because they psychologically, we are told that Benjamin could be the nicest guy in the world and not the most hated sales trainer in the UK, right? And I could call him on a day where he is exactly that. He's the nicest guy in the world. Or I could call him 10 minutes later after he stubbed his toe and he could tell me to F off on that phone. That is like seconds apart, and it's all situational. So we have to have this awareness and understanding of the way that people perceive how we reach out to them and what that looks like in the first place. And it has to be about the experience we give, not about some type of measurement around what quality actually is from the perspective of, oh, you have to use memes and you have to use this. It's not about that. It's about the experience, right? Those things are great when they're scaled in a way that meets the buyer where they are. And where you are resolved in knowing that this ain't going to work for everybody. And you don't need to tell anybody that it worked for one and didn't work for the other. Instead, you got to say for yourself, you got to take the science and go, okay, out of 10 people, it only worked for 2. And I'm hitting a CFO inside of the same vertical, right? And like everything is completely measurable, y'all, from that perspective. And that's what drives me insane, that we can't just sit back and say, if we're trying to build quality, we can't do it from the perspective of what our opinion of quality is. We have to meet the buyer where they are.
It's like with the pattern interrupts. When I first started writing about cold calling, we go back like 8 years, right? Very few people were writing about prospecting and cold calling. I was one of the few, and I used to talk about pattern interrupts. And a lot of people thought I was an idiot. You fast forward now 8 years, you can't get through an hour on LinkedIn without some SDR posting a post about the latest pattern interrupt that they've used. And then people start arguing with over each other. Well, that wouldn't work. And, pattern interrupts will work sometimes with some people, sometimes all of them will work. A pattern interrupt is by nature, by definition, an interruption to the pattern. As long as you're not saying, hi, it's Benjamin from ABC Company, how are you? Pretty much anything else is going to be more effective, right? So focus, and I think you said something right there, Dale. I mean, I would rather have 2 quality conversations using the same thing and 8 saying no out of 10, but consistently doing that every day. I know I'm going to have 2 quality, and then I'll stop. That's what we're after. Get a process, get a system, get a structure. Use all the different pattern interrupts. They're all going to vary. They're all going to have misfires. Most people like the one I do because I deliver it well, and at director level, 9 out of 10 times they laugh. Every now and then someone says, I hate that. I don't cry and say, this is stupid. I said, statistically, this is worth doing. Yeah. So it's just getting into a structure. Find what works for you and do it consistently. Don't keep chopping and changing.
Benjamin, I do have a really serious question though. Can you cry?
I tried once. I watched some shooting deers, and all I got was hungry.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. I wondered if it was even possible. Go on, Mark. Over to you.
I was just going to say, I think that's the thing with pattern interrupts, right? So when one of the classes that I teach, there's a list of pattern interrupts there. And I say to people, don't just go with whatever. Like, pick the one that feels most comfortable for you. And if it's not on this list, go and create your own. It doesn't really matter what you say, as long as it's not that, have I called you at a bad time? How are you today? You know, as long as it's a little bit creative. But, you know, I've heard SDRs try to use funny pattern interrupts when they're not naturally funny people. And it just kills the call. You know, like, if someone can't deliver, this is a cold call, do you want to hang up? They deliver it in the wrong way.
Terrible.
Kills it. And I have to say to him, like, you're trying to do that because it's the latest trend on LinkedIn, because you think it's funny. You're not a naturally funny person. Don't try and be naturally funny with your pattern interrupt, because it's killing your cold calls. And it's about find what works for you and then rinse the shit out of it, not trying to jump on the latest bandwagon that's flying around, because LinkedIn's full of that.
You know
let me make the next one real quick. Let me make the next one real quick. Hey, this is what SDRs need to do this now. They need to go, hey, I suck at asking people to roll the dice and telling them this is a cold call. Instead, would you mind if I pitch you real quick? You got a second? Everybody try that. Let's start a new trend. Let's do that.
New pattern interrupt created right there and then, live by Dale Dupree. Love it.
If someone's going to make £100,000 off of that call, and it's going to be all the rage, and then, oh my goodness.
Royalties. Love it. Love it. So listen, what's interesting in this conversation is that I'm going to take it out there, and I know none of you have said this yet. And Dale, I don't even know if I'll get you to agree to this, but I'm going to try nonetheless. What we're saying, you've talked about the process there, that Benjamin, Dale, you talked about the fact that, you know, that there's still got to be a certain amount of activity. So think about your letters, your crumpled, what do you call them? Crumpled letters, right? He didn't go out and do one, he did 20, right? He did a certain number. Yeah. And this is where it plays a role. We've got to do something enough. And that doesn't mean it has to be the focus, get as many as I can with no quality. But ultimately, whatever quality we're running with in our activity, there has to be a certain number of times for that to happen, for the result to be X, right? And it is natural maths that none of us can argue with, that if I do something once at the same quality, and then I do it twice at the same quality, 3 times, the more I do it, the more I will get, assuming there is no change in the barometer of quality in this conversation, right? And this is where I think people can't see how they go hand in hand. How do they play a role together? Back to your point earlier, this research thing really winds me up, right? I don't hire a rep because they're good at doing research. I want a researcher for a research job. I hire a sales rep because they're good at talking to people, good at engaging people, good at reading people, you know, good at conversation, good at persuading people, all these sorts of things. Not because they're good sitting in front of a computer looking at people's profiles and wondering whether they like Star Wars or not, so that they can put a Yoda in an email. It just pisses me right off. And I just can't understand why we would train Dale. I can't tell if Dale's crying or laughing.
I can't imagine you angry. You're such a nice guy.
It happens. It's all enthusiasm, I promise you. But what I can't understand is why we're moving down this route of not acknowledging the part that quantity plays. So we can absolutely preach about quality, and I think we're absolutely right to do that. But we cannot leave quantity behind. We absolutely cannot ignore it. But the market is doing that. I think the market and the content that we're producing, there is nobody that was prepared to come on here and debate quantity alone. Nobody. Maybe that tells us something. I don't know.
You've got to have quantity. The way I look at it is minimum expectations, right? You've got to have a minimum level of expectations, which if you're not hitting that, then it's just gross negligence to what you're meant to be doing. Exaggerating that point to make that point, right? If you're only going to do one bit of quality outreach a day, it just doesn't stack up with salaries and costs and what's being put into you to the meeting to get put on the board. So I think there needs to be minimum expectations that everyone buys into and everyone agrees with. And I think then it starts to really depend on who you're reaching out to. For example, if you reach out to sales leaders, you know quality's got to be there because immediately they judge you against what they do and their team. When I used to reach out to hotel managers, believe you me, come the 4th sequence, they would reply back, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I've missed your emails," because they didn't know that they were in that sequence. They didn't realize it was rinse and repeat. So I think it depends on the level of intelligence of the market, who you're reaching out to, etc. But you do need to have a minimum level of expectations to make that happen. You do need that.
Dale, can I ask you, because I think you're going to have a different opinion on that.
Well, I think that as a rebel, I got to just like constantly be pushing back. I think it's about context. Like Mark talked earlier about context, text essentially, right? He talked about context. Like when you take things and you put them into context, they can make more sense. If I have a company that thrives on transactional and very commodity-based products and services, right, and I'm trying to create quality outreach, it has to start, from my perspective, that starts with marketing, queuing up a really good conversation for me to have about the need that someone has. Okay. You can't necessarily because like Owen just said, you can't go have people that are selling something very transactional and very commodity based, going on and learning every Star Wars, terminology to be able to have a good conversation with somebody. That's just faking it until you make it, in my opinion. If you're not like, if I see something that's Star Wars related to somebody, like, game on, because that's my literal life. And so I can literally have a conversation with you now and make you feel kind of stupid probably at how little you know about Star Wars, and you'll engage me because
Dale,
you'll be like, what's this guy doing? What's up?
have you ever done a pattern interrupting Klingon?
Was that a troll move right there to
No,
mention Star Trek?
If you can get one of these Star Wars fans to do it in Klingon, I think you'd do business.
Well, so I'll tell you this, that I had a client that he had X-Wings and Millennium Falcons, and I mean, all over his desk, and you could see his desk when you walked in the front door. And so I made a video for the guy back in 2014 because I could never see him. I made a video of him, like, dressed up like a Jedi, and I literally went to my office and like used the Force on copiers, right? And it was great because I'm like holding my hand over a machine trying to make it print, and there's this music playing, and then it all just like cuts, and I'm like, shit, like hit the button, and I'm like, and the guy loved it, right? Like, to me, like that. And guess what? That was a $7.1 million sale, right? So again, like, context is important.
Yeah.
We have to have context around these things. If I'm calling somebody and selling a $100 product, and I'm picking up and going, Benjamin, hey, listen, that new pair of underwear you just got from socks.com, with the polka dots, beautiful stuff, right? That's not going to work. No. It's not going to work, especially because it's like, well, what's this about? Well, I'm calling about this $100 product that I want you to buy, right? That just doesn't work, right? But if I use context, and I also think about the perspective of my buyer, right, and the perception of my buyer, then it's easier for me to create my own statistics. I don't like playing the numbers game. I like what Mark said about a standard, right? Because I'm a guy that comes from a hard work environment. My father woke up every morning at 5 a.m. to do a devotional with my mom, to get in a car, to drive 44 miles to go to work my whole life, right? I looked up to that man. He was my everything. And so for me, it is very important to continue that legacy. That's my story, though. It's no one else's. I'm not going to force that on somebody else. But for me, there's a standard. I have to meet a standard on a daily basis. And that's what we need to challenge sales reps to do. It's like, make your standard, guys. And if it's like, okay, if somebody comes to Mark and goes, all right, I'm going to do 9 calls a day, what do you think of that? It's like, well, there's a line also around the standard. People need to be learned in some cases, right, as well, too. Yeah. So there is this identity when it comes to sales that I just believe that it takes the heart and soul of the person. Do you want to risk? Do you desire greater rewards? Are you willing to become uncomfortable? Because if you don't like doing the dials, I think you should do them, honestly. Because if you tell me, like, I don't like doing this, I'm going to be like, cool, let's do more. Because it's not about the quantity at that point, right? It's about the learning, and it's about developing that aptitude, like we talked about earlier. So where I think there's a line for me, there's also this identity of the context and making your own statistic. I want to be calling 50 people a day because that's my stat. Because if I call 50 people, I'm going to set my literal goal. I'm going to hit the numbers I desire, not just what the company told me to do, but what I want. I'm going to take ownership over that thing.
Dale, Mark, I'm going to come to you because I know you want to say something. Two comments before that. Number one, 9 calls an hour. No, 9 calls a day is fine if you're doing lots of research. Remember, I just want to say that. Not sarcastic at all. Number 2, I thought it was this guy, Sean Ryan, who was looking through my window, but apparently it's you. How on earth did you know what I've been ordering? This is just getting creepy. Mark, coming over to you, mate.
So, well, first of all, right, so what Dal was saying there's 2 things to pick up on. I think everyone watching live right now, if you agree with me, just put in the chat that you want to see this. At the end of this recording, I want 2 things. I want to see Benjamin's resignation letter that started with a fish rots with their head down. I'd love to see that.
I've probably got it somewhere.
Please dig it out, right? If anyone else wants to see it, put it. And
if your old boss is watching this, please could you share it with us? Get it out of his HR file. I bet it was quite big, your HR file.
and Dow, I want to see this Jedi video, man. Like you've got to find it, you've got to share it. That'd be great. But Dow, the thing I really wanted to ask you was talking about marketing. I might have misunderstood, but it felt to me like you were saying marketing should be providing us with the list of people we go after, etc., and maybe the messaging. I don't know if that's what you were saying, but my take,
like, just real quick to clarify that, so you can put a take to it, is that if I'm in, it's about context, right? If I'm in an environment where I want to create personalization, I need to give an experience to these people before my folks get on the phone and do their 200 dials today, so that when they're calling that person, that there's a warmness to it, right? Hey, what's up? This is Dale with XYZ Company. Does that ring a bell? Oh yeah, I've been getting emails from you guys. Or, oh yeah, you guys sent me something in the mail. Like, there is a strategy to that, I believe, wholeheartedly, that marketing steps into to help the salesperson to be able to create that. But if you're like, again, though, if you don't have that layer and you're trying to create personalization, it just ain't gonna work the same way. You can't do 200 dials in a day and personalize every single one of them.
Yeah, and personalization depends on the person receiving it. I mean, I find it creepy. I find it really weird, yeah? And it's like, you know, you don't need to do that. You can just phone me up or drop me. But it is just something about it. Now, maybe people under 25, it's perfectly normal because they've grown up with social media. But to anyone under 25, you do realize that everything you've been told about the world is a lie. You do know that, right? I hope you realize that.
Think of it like this, guys. If I call Benjamin and I say, hey, what's up, Benjamin? This is Dale. And I know you don't give a shit, that I know everything about you. I know X, I know Y, I know Z.
Yeah.
I know you don't care about that. I know what you want is for me to get to the point right now. So do you mind if I do that? Or are you super busy, even though you picked up the phone? Like, that's my literal cold call that creates personalization, right? It's about context. It's about the emotion. If I go on somebody's website, I go on their LinkedIn page, I'm not going to pick up like where they went to college. I'm going to look at the words they use. I'm going to look at the way they describe things. I'm going to look at the context of their emotions, right? Because there's three things, in my opinion, that create creativity and quality, right? Which is emotional context, interrupting the typical patterns, and causing curiosity, which every human being has naturally in their personality, no matter who you are.
What do you say to, because you get this online, it always makes me laugh. I mean, I'd run a mile, but you get those people that come on, please, salespeople, stop sending me generic emails. Send me something that's, but you actually get prospects saying, personalize it. As soon as I read this, I think we got a really emotionally needy person here. I wouldn't want to do business. They've just told the world I'm going to be a real ball ache to work with because I'm so emotional. Yeah. Yeah.
I think they just don't. I think they just are sick of getting emails that say, hi, I sell this product. Do you want to set up 15 minutes?
Yeah,
I think that's really all it is. They get so many of those that they would really love it if they could get a little bit of attention from a salesperson, right? And maybe that's also like a traumatic response as well, too. But not to get super deep here, but it could be like that. People don't like being treated that way in some instances, right?
Yeah.
Because of who they are, right? So when we see that again, like, that's just, for me, it's another trigger toward like what that person actually needs. Because here's what's funny, Benjamin, and Mark probably agrees with this too, right, bro? Is that when that guy comes out and does that, 100 salespeople email them, and it's like personalized, and they don't respond to any of them, right?
No.
That's what happens.
Well,
Mark,
think about it.
Mark's being a bit polite, and I know he wants to say something. Let's let Mark just come in quickly.
Well, I feel like when we're talking about personalization, we're making it out like it's always creepy. And I think just when Benjamin said, like, if I get a personalized email, I think it's creepy. I feel like we're just talking about the wrong thing. We're talking about not being relevant. If you got a phone call today where a sales rep said, I just read your LinkedIn post, it was absolutely brilliant. This is what I loved about it. I wanted to say thank you, right? You wouldn't find that creepy because you've posted that on LinkedIn.
No, I think they're after free consulting. They're stroking me, trying to make me feel good. I'd even be more suspicious.
But if they then linked it to something relevant, I think you'd find that's okay. It's when someone says to you, I know what you used to do. I remember when you posted this on other media, but that's when it's creepy. And I think that's what we're confusing it. When we talk about personalization, we need to be talking about being relevant.
I agree with the point there. I won't argue with that point.
Yeah. People post stuff on the internet because they want attention. Those people that moan, I don't get any personalization, it's because, you know what? They write LinkedIn posts, they get one like from their mum. Like they're like, oh, I'm writing all this content, no one loves me. You know, that's what it is. It's a call for attention. I totally agree. But yeah, personalization, we are just focusing on it being uber creepy rather than relevant personalization.
I think you've got a point there. Louise has made a comment there about a little personalization proves that it's not a sequenced email. Thanks, Lou. And I think it's really interesting because I guess there's a difference between personalization and quality, right? Because personalization can be bad personalization or good personalization, just like a cold call can be good or bad. And, maybe we need to just dig into that a little bit and just understand as a buyer, we all have different opinions.
Yeah, I think the three of us, like especially me and Benjamin, like we got on a tangent because a lot of people convolute this argument. They think that somehow quality is personalization, and then what happens is they create what they think is personalization, and it sucks. Yeah. And listen to everybody out there that's trying to argue with us right now. Stop it. We're the ones talking. I'm just kidding. But you need to recognize that it is a problem. If you don't recognize that it's a problem, how will you get better at doing it in the first place? Mark, were you at Refract before it got bought when Stuart was there?
Yeah, I've worked with Stuart in 3 different jobs, actually. I've known him for about 15 years. So, yeah,
let's use a literal example, everybody watching right now. Let's use a literal example of 8/22/2019, when I received a phone call from Stuart over at a little company called Refract, which is now Allegro, right? Did I get that right?
Allego, yeah.
Allego, yeah, cool. Sorry if I botched the name. So Stuart made a call to me and literally created a moment with me. And he used an element of personalization, but what he really caused was a familiar second for me. I went, ooh, that's familiar. I've heard that, or I like that, or that sounds like something that I'm attracted to. So going to Benjamin's point, right? Again, going back to like what I said earlier, you can't approach the guy below me here with anything that would be, that would show that you've done some fancy research. You've got to be blunt with this man, and you have to be very forthright about what you're doing. And there are prospects like that. Well, Stuart did enough research on me and knew that the only thing I really need to do for Dale right now is I need to create a familiar moment, right? And maybe that wasn't exactly his goal, but that's what he did. He triggered that nerve and that note in my brain that created familiarity. And I said, well, what do you mean? That's my literal words in. What do you mean by that? And he said, well, do you mind if it's going to take me a couple minutes. Do you mind if I tell you more? And that permission-based thing is always good with me because of how I grew up. I'm a Southern boy. I like to give and ask for permission, right? Florida is the South. Okay. I don't want to have a debate about that. All right, Benjamin. So, but the thought is that in those moments, right, that Stuart created something very personalized in the way that I felt it, that I even gave him the permission to send me a pre-recorded demo because I said, brother, I don't have time. I literally just started my business like 4 months ago. I have zero time for anything but what's on my plate. Currently, I could talk at the end of the year. And Stuart, instead of saying, yeah, Dale, let me call you at the end of the year. He met me where I was and said, that sucks. And I literally opened up more to him because of that, right? And this is, to me, again, this is him being willing and able to develop that aptitude necessary as a salesperson, to be able to meet me in my moments and to be able to help in conversation with someone like me, for myself to feel like I am not just a number. Okay. And Stuart could have turned around and made another 200 calls for all I know, but he made me feel very important in that moment. And I'm sorry to Richard, if you're watching this, I never bought Refract, and then probably strung him along to some extent, but great product. Allego probably is too. So I'm endorsing it right now, but besides the point,
do you need a shovel, Dale? You need a shovel. You're right.
Yeah. The point is that I think from the perspective of this personalization side that it's less about what you know about the person and more about how you make them feel and the experience you give them in those first moments. Because from there, you can learn more and you can be less creepy, as some people have said it on this call, right? Because now it makes sense. I've had 3 meetings with you. It's great that you're actually leaning into a relationship with me, even if it's just a business relationship and not pizza every Friday night. It's still something that I feel okay about. So that to me, like that's really, I think we got on a tangent because a lot of us are just we're very vocal about this thought because it's being done wrong, bottom line, by the majority of salespeople.
I see personalization as the cherry on the top. You have to get good at the fundamental basics. If you get good at the fundamental basics, you can always do a little bit of personalization, but the fundamentals have to be there. Why are you calling? What are you going to say? What do you want to have happen by the end of the call? How are you going to get your person there? And why you're saying what you're saying. If you don't know that, it doesn't matter how brilliant the personalization is. And I used to call it the stun grenade approach. I was very good at getting meetings with people by being different. But then you get in front of them and there was no reason to be there. You got to also factor that in. Just because you do something that people really love, say, yeah, that's great. Come and see me. Yeah. You get there and it's like, well, why are we? I don't know. I just really liked your email. I wanted to meet you. well, now I've just wasted 3 hours of my life. Yeah, what? Hey, you approached me. I never said I was interested in what you had. So this is the other thing. Just because you're getting in front of people from wonderful personalization doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go anywhere, right? So the eye on the prize is I only want to meet people that may have problems I can fix. And by the end of that meeting, we're going to know one way or another if I can or if I can't. This is not Tinder, folks. This is not a social event. We're prospecting for a reason to get in front of people that have money and make decisions. And if they can't make a decision or don't have money, I'm leaving and I'm not kissing you.
I think Mark might be leaving. He just realised it's not Tinder. Jeez, all those years. He's even written a book.
Here's the thing, right? I think what channel you're using has a big say in this, right? Owen, let's fire a question to you, right? Yeah. How many emails do you think you've received this year?
What? Total emails? Any email?
No, sales emails.
Well, whilst you're, so I hopped on a podcast the other day, right? It was 7 minutes past 12 in the afternoon. And I looked at my inbox because we're talking about emails. I looked at my inbox, and that day, by 7 minutes past 12, I'd already received 37 emails. Now, that's obviously from different areas and whatnot. 6 were from sales reps, all asking for time, no personalization whatsoever, right? But 37 emails by 7 minutes past 12. I've not received 37 cold calls in the last 2 years, right? So I think when you're emailing and you're competing in such a vast amount of jungle noise, you have to stand out, and that's where the personalization comes in. If someone cold calls me up, they'll break through the noise easily. And as long as the call is relevant, they don't need to be personal. Like, it doesn't need to be a personalized call. That's my point to you, Ed, right? How many cold calls have you had this year versus how many emails have you had this year?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. Mark, if you fancy posting your phone number in the comments, I'm sure you'll get loads of cold calls after this. But, if you're brave enough. I think it's spot on. This is the thing, right? Everybody out there thinks that cold calling is, there's so many calls being made. But you've got to remember, there's millions of businesses. There's so many people to talk to out there. And to your point, most of the time, even if they are getting cold calls, they don't answer their phone. They're busy. They're in a meeting. They're in the toilet. They're eating a packet of Monster Munch. Whatever they're doing at the time, they don't want to talk to you. So it's not just the number of calls you get; it's the number of calls you actually answer that is the amount that we remember or that we can take. And yet, every email has to be deleted, and it's a very different experience. I think you're right. Like, that's a really quick way to increase the quality of what you're doing. Is pick the right channel. Pick the right channel. You know, if you can get some timing into relevancy as well, great. The timing bit's a bit of luck sometimes as well. It depends on how much research you do, I suppose. But yeah, no, I don't get many cold calls at all. Maybe 2 a week, if that.
But here's why. It's so easy to get the numbers up with sequencing with emails to appease your boss who's too lazy to check the quality. They look at the quantity. And when it comes to cold calling, people are just too worried because they think about themselves, right? I always use this analogy, like making a cold call should be seen as like when you want to catch and release or kill a spider, right? It's worse for the spider. They don't know what's coming. Like when you cold call someone up, you know that call's about to happen. You know who you're calling. You know what they look like. You know where they work. You know their job title. You've decided that call's happening. The prospect had no clue, sat there aimlessly, no idea what was about to happen. Therefore, they're actually quite nervous because they're like, who's this? Don't know this person, what are they calling from, where they get my details. And when you've got 2 nervous people on the phone, that's where there's friction. That's why when you cold call someone, you've got to do it knowing that you're going to talk about problems that they're likely to have, and you're calling because you're the good guy, you're looking to try and help them. But people don't like to do that because they're worried about themselves. Well, they can just press send on an email. Look at me, boss, I sent 100 emails today.
Yeah. Can I just want to move us a little bit for a second. I've been challenging, pushing quantity a little bit in this conversation because obviously the 3 of you, if you add you together, there's a little bit more on the quality notion than on the quality. So I'm just going to switch sides for a minute, and I'm just going to talk about the culture that you create and the impact of those things. I just want to get your take on that because I get the sense that an over focus on quantity does a couple of things. First and foremost, we create lifelong SDRs who never go anywhere because they never learn to be good. They never learn to get better. They always focus on trying to hit a target. They don't have any time to be coached or do coaching because they've got to hit a number of calls every single day. They've got to hit a number of calls every hour. There is no time for anything else. And what that does is it creates people who leave the role they leave quick because they're not interested. The culture isn't an attractive one. And I think there's all these kind of knock-on effects of being overly focused on quantity. I highly doubt that any of you are going to disagree, but I'd be interested to get your take on that notion.
Let's let Mark go first. Benjamin and I have been like destroying the airtime. What do you think, Mark?
Go on, Mark.
Yeah, go, Mark. And then me, and then maybe Dale.
So
Maybe.
give me the direct question. What? Because I felt like there was.
All right. Okay. Is a focus on is too much of a focus on quantity alone going to have an impact on culture, retaining people, and other things? What other things is it going to impact on other than just the results that you get through sales?
Yeah, so I've had this, right? I've had just this. My second proper sales job, I walked in and very quickly become aware this was a culture of quantity. My one-to-ones were about genuinely how many people I'd put in the CRM, how many emails I'd sent, how many phone calls I'd made, how many meetings were booked. It was never looked at as to the quality of those, the outcomes of those, and what I was doing. And I knew that I had to leave when I asked for a headphone set. I said, look, I'm getting sick and tired of picking up the phone. Can I get a headphone set? I'll be much more productive. And the response was this: you can't have one of them because it'll look like to the rest of the office like you're not working. And I just thought, this is insane. What is this about? That you've got to be picking up the phone to be working, like, and I knew I had to leave, and I didn't stay there very long. And the culture was, the manager would just stare at the board, like literally, you'd stand behind you, stare at the board very quietly, and it was very tense. Everyone was very quiet. You knew that he was looking at the board and tutting, and words were said. This isn't very good. This isn't very good. What's this? And question find out. And it was just like, it's like Darth Vader walking around the office, right? And you just, and then the CRM was there. And like I say, in the one-to-ones, the best you ever got was, tell me about this opportunity you're working on. And I just spat out whatever I thought they wanted to hear. I had one call reviewed in the 10 months that I worked there. And guess what? We disagreed because they sat there and they said, you didn't, little things like, you didn't check how they were for time. I was like, yeah, I did. And they're like, no, I didn't hear it. I was like, oh, so it didn't happen then, you know. But only one call I ever listened to. It was all about quantity. And I never felt like I was being developed. I never felt like they cared about me. I felt like a cog. And like I say, when I couldn't get a headphone set to be more productive, because I like to be able to write stuff down, not sat holding the phone, I knew it was time to leave. It wasn't the place for me.
I'd say the biggest problem with sales is it's called a profession, but it's not. Most professions have regulatory bodies, and it's how you do your job that matters than the outcomes. Outcomes are the byproduct of doing something well. So if you're a lawyer and you win your cases, but it's discovered that you were deliberately lying and cheating, or you were doing things that were wrong, all your wins are irrelevant because, I'm sorry, mate, that's not how you do this. The corporate culture doesn't care about sales behavior. They care about hitting numbers because they only measure things that they think are important, and they don't measure things that matter. And if as a profession, and this is there is no regulatory body. No one sees you. You know what? That was a good call. You got a meeting, but you did it all completely wrong. That was a fluke. That was a one-off. Good for you. But if you do that every day, you're not going to consistently get the same outcomes. A lawyer, a surgeon, they do the same thing over and over again really, really well, consistently to high standards. And if they lose, they don't beat themselves up. They go, look, did I do everything right? Yes. Did I do everything morally, ethically, legally? Is there anything anyone else could have done better? No. I'll take that then. It just wasn't meant to be. We don't have that in sales. Why didn't you get the deal? Why didn't you get it over the line? And so the focus is always on the outcome and never how we get there. And until that changes, sales is always going to be full of these shitty managers that just literally look at counting bean counters. We should focus on behavior that works and encourage it. The results will come, but that's not the culture. It's not a profession. It's not. And that is our problem. And yeah, so
Well,
a grown-up thought.
Grown-up thought, real-time experience. So
Real-time.
What Benjamin's talking about right here. When I was a VP of sales, and I had a wonderful team of people working underneath me at my last company before I started this one, we would have a call block, and I was told by the guy that ran the president of sales, the guy that ran all the different branches, I was told you have to have them make a certain number of dials a week. And again, this is where this is a debate, quite frankly, because a lot of us have been forced and told we have to do something that really literally from a behavioral standpoint does not bring the right kind of results. It might bring some, and people might, and your boss's boss might be happy about it. But what about the rep? So I started putting my reps first. So we would do these call blocks, and I had a gentleman that just sucked. You know who you are, bro, if you're watching this. He just sucked at getting on the phone. Everybody would be like 30 calls in, and he'd be on his 5th or 6th, right? He was meticulous. He was slow. And that was part of his culture. So I started telling him, in the morning, you're going to get on the phone and make a couple calls just to be here, and then you're going to leave, and you have to do the rest in the field. And the way he looked at me when I told him that he had to do the rest of the field is if I just give him permission to live his life, right? I have to go in the field? Yeah, you have to go in the field. Okay. No argument, right? And he thrived in the field. By lunch, 1 o'clock or so, he'd be texting in, hey, I got 2 appointments. And hey, I stopped by at a follow-up that I needed to do, and they're actually ready to sign. We need to get paperwork drawn up, right? Like, he would be very productive in the field because he was so good at getting in front of you and igniting a conversation out of nothing, or being in a very negative moment and being able to meet you there so that you wanted to tell him more in the first place. So I really think, based on it, what everybody's saying, like, I think at the end of the day that it comes back down to this perspective of how are we doing it? Why are we in sales? And it's different. Like, Benjamin and I are very different people, yet we agree on so much, right? I think that's what makes it beautiful to have. Because you're right and I'm not. It's exactly what so it makes it beautiful for the sales world to be able to, especially with today, the day and age, right? Benjamin's throwing shade at LinkedIn. People wouldn't even know our existences, bro, or what we believed without it in the first place, right? Yeah. So to me, what I would be thinking if I'm a leader, if I'm a rep, is I'd be leaning into the people that their message doesn't just resonate with me. I believe in it. And I know that if I take their advice and I do what they tell me, I'll be better. Instead of the rep that's out there that's got like 99 people that they're learning from and picking stuff out here and there, right? Because they're never really making it theirs, right? There's nothing wrong with learning from multiple people, but learn from them in a way that helps you to understand how to cultivate it for yourself. Because nobody cares as much as you. Benjamin, Mark, myself, Owen will not get on the phone and set your appointments for you. You're the only person. Your boss can't do that for you either. And if they do, then either they're enabling or they're a really supportive boss. And you need to be very cautious about either of those, right? Because for you, it's got to be about, what do you desire out of sales? If me personally, I'm in sales to fulfill and continue to build a legacy, one that I witnessed at the funeral of my father when I stood up to give the eulogy, and there was a sea of over 1,000 people in a room that fit 800-900. And they were literal clients in this place that had bought from him 29 years ago and literally believed that my father was one of the greatest humans of all time because of a copier, because of a sales cycle. And to me, like, that is a magnificent ending to an awesome existence on earth, even though cut short. And that's what I desire. I want that. If you don't want that, that's okay, right? You need to lean into the thing that you desire, though. Stop taking orders from people that haven't even done it, the things they're telling you to do, in 15, 20 plus years in the first place. You need to find environments that you can thrive in. Just like when we were talking about, hey, when you get on the phone and you dial and someone says they're not interested, stop taking it personally and stop being like, oh, I got to come back to this guy. There's a million other people to call. There are a million other jobs you can get. There's a leader out there looking to help you to thrive in the environment that you desire to be in. You need to be a rebel and quit. Get out of your safety zone. Go find something that will literally help you to light that flame and set the world on fire. And if that's not your mindset, every day, whether you're doing quality or quantity, you will fail. Guaranteed.
Brilliant. Look, listen, guys, we're heading towards the end. I want to just go around closing statements, right? Let's just go back. We've drifted, but in a really nice way. And I've had so many notes, messages, emails throughout this, just saying how much people A, enjoyed it, and B, how much they've learned. So most importantly, thank you for being here and for joining. I think it's been quite friendly, I have to say. A few moments, but it's been pretty friendly. Part of me's happy about that. Part of me's a bit disappointed, but hey, we'll be all right one way or other. It's fine. what I want to do is just go around, and I'll go back to Dale, and then Mark, then Benjamin, if that's okay. Quick 1 minute. What's your take? What have we got out of this conversation? What's your summary? Closing thoughts.
Benjamin's always right. And Mark gets interrupted like crazy because Benjamin and I are too extroverted. I would say this. I think what people can learn from today is that this isn't a debate as much as it's about what is it that specifically you would prefer? What is it that's going to challenge you? What is it that's going to create a better salesperson out of you in the first place? And provide that passion, that meaning, that push that you need in your existence in order to fulfill the things that you desire. In sales, we can make a lot of money. That's part of why you get into it. That can provide a lot of amazing things in your life. The stuff that I've done in my life at now 36 years old, incredible. And I have nothing but sales to thank for that. And you know what that means is that the people that bought from me and that has supported me for all those years, right? That's what sales is. It's service to others. It's the identity of, like has been talked on here. Are you helping with a problem? Are you fixing something that people need fixed, right? Or are you just selling something? So whether you're doing quality or you're doing quantity, lean in to the existence of what you're actually doing for people and you will be successful.
Mark?
So they're not mutually exclusive, right? You're going to have to turn different dials at different times depending on where you're at. Ultimately, quality is the most important thing, but you have to have a minimum level of expectation that you set yourself every day. And anyone that gets offended by being told they need to work hard are people that just aren't cut out for this role, in all honesty. Here's the thing. The people that have turned up for this, I know either are or will go on to be top performers because they're investing themselves. You know, they've chosen to join this, to listen, to learn. You've got to take control for your own career. There's so much out there that can help you. There's podcasts, there's books, there's loads of free content on LinkedIn to help you with the quality, right? Because you don't know all the answers. So you need help with the quality. And when you get there, you've got to just have that minimum level expectation and you've got to keep turning the dial because ultimately it's about having conversations and you'll work out how much quantity you need to have those conversations at the right quality. Then you're going to build pipeline with people that have problems that they're motivated to solve and know you can help. And sales managers, stop being lazy bastards. Stop just looking at dashboards and get in and look at the quality rather than the quantity. And if the quality is not there, it's your job to help them and develop them. And if you're not doing that, you need to take a long, hard look at yourself because that's not a manager. So that's my closing debate.
Benjamin?
Well, let's say something brutal. Most people in sales are going to be average. Let's face it. You're never going to go mount to much. You're going to come in, you're going to do the grind, you're going to do what's required. You're what I call, a juster. I'm just off target, or I just missed, or I just in. And that's enough to keep you going. I've never met a salesperson looking for a new job because they need a new opportunity. They know they're about to be fired and they're trying to jump ship. So most of you, unfortunately, will be pretty average. Yeah, but that's like anything, right? Most people who play football are average. Most people who play anything average. A few people excel. Why do they excel? Because they realize that they're the master of their own destiny and they put in the effort to figure out how to get really good at what they want to do. Most people aren't passionate about sales. They're trapped in it. I say it's like a community-based sentence for most people, yeah? It's not a career, it's a life sentence because you do realize, don't you? And you've all had this epiphany if you're watching this about 2 to 3 years into your sales career, it hits you. I have no transferable skills. What can you do, right? Yeah, you can't be a teacher because you've got to go retrain. You can't be a doctor. So you start waiting. So you're always stuck. Yeah, and a lot of people get stuck there. What I say is learn how to get really good. And if you know you're going to be in it for the rest of your life, master it. And if you do that, prospecting is key. You have to talk to people. This is communications job. So pick up the phone, talk to people, learn from people, listen to people, but study this. Yeah? You've got to want to do this. And most people aren't self-motivated. 99% of people work for someone. Why? Because the 1% take that risk. It's hard. Dale knows it. Owen knows it. Mark, setting up your own business is hard. Going it alone is hard. But if you want to do that, you need to learn to sell because that's what you're going to be doing for the first 3 to 5 years of your life. Yeah? If you don't want that and you want to be an at least, then that's fine. Just hit target. Just miss target, you'll be fine. but don't whinge about it because it's what you've chosen.
Love it. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Just to prove the point that you can't keep everyone happy, I just want to touch on something. We have had a little complaint during this that we've only apparently got middle-aged white guys on here, which, you know,
rule the world. So
we did, just to clarify, we did have a female panelist who's ill. I knew it would happen, but you can't make everyone happy. Everyone else has loved it. And yeah, apologies, we haven't got that diversity on here, but really,
whatever you want.
And we got
whoever I would challenge
the sales world on here to educate, and that's just the way it is.
I would challenge the person that said that to come to me personally and like, let's set up a place where we can enable that. Right, like let's do that. And actually, I'll hit up Owen after you hit up me, and we'll have them sponsor the event. But if the audience feels that we need a female perspective on this, or we need a minority perspective on this, let's do it. Yeah. Let's set it up and let's make it happen. I think, and that's what I think is it should come of that statement right there.
Yeah, certainly. Look, Georgia was due to join us. Who is female, would have given us a bit of diversity and variety, but you know what? She's ill and we can't do anything about that, and that's life. But we carry on, and we've got the best people in, just like Mark stepping in last minute as well. We massively appreciate that. So thank you for joining us, guys. Please follow Dale, Mark, Benjamin, myself, and also if you can follow Air Marketing, we are running another debate next month. This time it's on, should SDRs be in the office or working from home? How do you get the best result out of them? You know, because everyone's talking about that stuff, and we might have some opinions on that as well. We'll never know. So we'll bring people in to debate that lovely topic next month. So follow us to keep going with these debates. We're going to be doing one every month all year. For now, though, gents, thank you. Adele, I know you've probably got to get off and go make some money. Benjamin's got to, I don't know, go and train some people how to make some cold calls properly. Mark's got to go play golf, I think. So very different. Who's the lazy bastard now, Mark?
Yes, just have a new quarter. You can turn it off.
Hope your boss isn't watching.
With him.
Oh, you're with him. Fair enough. All right, it's work. I'm sure. Gents, final result: quality or quantity? I think that one's the ruler, isn't it? By the looks of things, but it can't be used on its own. There needs to be some quantity. I think it's balance, right? But if one wins, it's that one. Agreed.
Agreed.
On that note, thank you very much. Really appreciate you joining us. Thanks for the comments and questions.
Cheers, Mark. Cheers, Alan, for putting us on. It's great.
Cheers, Owen.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.